Hello and welcome back to the Toffee Blues YouTube channel, your source for all things Everton. My name is Thomas, back with another opposition view on the channel today, and of course, one of the two times a year I am joined by a fellow Geordie on the channel. Today, joined again by Marc from the True Faith Newcastle United Fanzine podcast, part of the Newcastle United Supporters Trust as well, I believe. So we spoke to Marc. I mean, we were just mentioning 4 months ago. I think we were only 6 games into the season. Marc, how have you been since then? Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, Thomas. Appreciate the invite back. Personally, you've just got to crack on, haven't you, with what's happening in the world or what's not happening. It's just unfortunate that 4 months later, mate, I think I'm going to sound like I'm repeating myself talking to you about Newcastle, but we'll give it a go.
Yeah, so I've actually just pulled up my notes from the last time. Obviously, you did end up winning that game. We had a lot of injuries and we basically set up horribly. We had about 17 centre midfielders on the pitch, but at the time, you'd lost 2-1-2 and drawn 2. It was a pretty decent start to the season, all in all. Mm-hmm. I think it's probably fair to say it's gone downhill since then. If we're going to be nice about it, just a brief overview. What's gone wrong?
What's gone wrong? The manager doesn't know how to get the best out of his players. He was backed in the summer. He told everyone that he was happy with who come in. He seemed to be celebrating the fact that he managed to get Callum Wilson in because it went against the normal remit of the owner, where we don't spend a lot of money on players over 27, 28. And obviously beating the likes of Everton, putting in some half-decent performances, but we always seem to scrape victories or scrape draws, fortunately, And I think since then, mate, it's just been the same old. The odd win, nightmare performances, but the real test is now, because the last 10 games or so, we're in a relegation battle. Whether Steve Bruce wants to admit that or not, we are definitely in a relegation battle.
Yeah, and obviously at the time we spoke about your transfer business last video, and it seemed pretty solid from kind of looking at the outside in. Ryan Fraser on a free was decent business. Callum Wilson, I mean, he scores goals in the Premier League. What more can you ask for? Jamal Lewis as well, Jeff Hendrick. I mean, I know Callum Wilson's had a pretty decent season. I think he's got 8 or 9 goals or something. Ryan Fraser's kind of been in and out with injuries, but I don't know too much about Jeff Hendrick and Jamal Lewis. What's been going on with them?
To be honest, when we spoke back in October, I think everyone was quite happy with the transfer business. I actually said every single player was an improvement on who we had. So you can't argue with that. But unfortunately, only really Wilson has been a positive signing. And I say that, and he's on a bit of a drought at the moment. He hasn't scored in 6 or 7 games. So the only person who you could really rely on to score a goal for you is now not scoring. I think we've scored two goals in the last 9 games. We haven't won in 11 in all competitions. Lewis has been in and out of the team. He was such a prospect at Norwich, to the fact that we were over the moon that we could sign him. His best performances this season have been for Northern Ireland. Regarding Hendrick, he's been found to be no better than who we've got, and he's been played in centre midfield, in front of the back four, and also on the right hand side. So it's what is his true position? And then with Fraser, we thought we had got a very, very good attacking left side of midfielder there, and to be honest, he's been so disappointing because he's injury prone, and obviously his contribution against Sheffield United the other week was to get 2 stupid yellow cards, and he got a red card. It's frustrating, Thomas. Apart from Wilson, mate, I would say that the signs have not played any better than last season's players.
Yeah, that is tricky. That, and how much of that are you putting down to Steve Bruce? Because, I mean, looking from the outside in, seems there's been a lot of kind of tactical chopping and changing. Maybe doesn't know what his best side is. I mean, there's been times where, you've changed from back 4 to back 5. You've had different defensive players in and out. So how much are you putting the new sign struggling down to his kind of tactical prowess, we could say?
It's easy to say this, Thomas. The players have got to take some responsibility. At the end of the day, they're professionals. Some of them may think they'll never get a bigger club than Newcastle. And I don't mean to sound big-headed in that, but some of them won't get a bigger club than Newcastle. Some of them could move on to better things, and probably will if we got relegated. But in regards to how we're set up, you've just hit the nail on the head, Thomas. We don't seem to know what our best formation is. Bruce doesn't seem to know what his best starting 11 is, apart from the likes of Wilson. Possibly the goalkeeper speaks for himself. and probably Fernandez at the back. But he's been dropped recently. He made a mistake at Sheffield United and he's been dropped. He's been our best defender all season. Kieran Clark, who for me he's average at best, but he's quite reliable. He doesn't really make any errors. But he's just being given a new contract. That isn't a sign of a club who are looking at moving forward. Given a new contract with a 30-year-old who, as I say, is average at best. For me, it's all down to Steve Bruce, because we've played, I think, 25 games or so with 5 at the back. And I think the statistics show that we've won something like 2 of them. But he keeps sticking with 5 at the back. So, it doesn't take, a genius to work that out. Me or you, Thomas, could sit down and go, you know what, 5 at the back isn't actually working. And lo and behold, against Leeds on Tuesday, he went 4-4-2 after about 10 minutes because he knew it wasn't working. And then all of a sudden there's this sort of, feedback saying Newcastle looked much better. We were played 30 yards higher up the pitch. It was loads of improvement, loads of chances and all that. We've still got beat 2-1 off a promoted side, against a side that you would still think could be there or thereabouts around the relegation zone at the end of the season. They've beat us 5-2 and 2-1. That isn't, at the end of the day, it's 3 points now. It's not performances, it's points. And as we sit here now going into February next week, we still don't know what the best lineup is, and we don't know what the best formation is, and it's all down to the manager.
Yeah, and you mentioned the relegation zone there. Obviously, you weren't in it then with this kind of run of form. You've really kind of been dragged into it. Obviously, Burnley are now 3 points ahead. I think they're on a decent run of form. Brighton are only one or 2 points behind you. Fulham are pretty close as well. And obviously, everyone's got games in hand over everyone at the minute, following all the postponements. So it is fairly bleak, I'd imagine. So where do you expect to kind of be towards the end of the season? Let's say hypothetically nothing changes. Bruce is there till the end of the season. You don't bring in any players in January. So where do you think you'll end up?
I seriously think we'll be relegated, Thomas. I said to you now, and I think we haven't got enough, based on the fact that they've backed Bruce in a way by bringing in a coach to work alongside him. Bruce's press conference said he's a Geordie, he knows all about the club. I think he'll be a great sort of helping hand, as he put it. I'm sorry, but that's a cliche. There's a stereotype that Newcastle fans just want Geordies in the team or Geordie man. It's a load of bull. End of the day, if you're good at your job, we'll welcome you. Rafa Benitez is a prime case, example. Now, for me, this new coach, I know very little about him. If he's going to come in, I personally think that might be the first nudge out of the door for Steve Bruce. I think that could be a way of saying, look, there's someone here in the background who we're going to give the job to if the results don't improve. If Steve Bruce is still in charge when we go into our final game of the season against, it'll be Fulham away, I believe. If he's still in charge and we're in a relegation fight against Fulham, we will go down.
And obviously, the coach did bring in, of course, Graham Jones, former Roberto Martinez assistant at Everton. So we do know something about him, and he definitely frustrated fans towards the end. But I think that's because of, Graham Jones and Roberto Martinez definitely didn't set up in the way that Steve Bruce set up. So it seems like a pretty curious one to bring in. He seems to bring a completely different style. There's ways of moving away from the defensive style that you have played, but then there's bringing in a manager that's assistant manager that's completely attacking minded. He struggled at Luton as well. He wasn't there for too long, but Bruce came out in that astonishing interview, didn't he, a couple of weeks ago, where he said he wants to do things his way now. The gloves are coming off. Have you noticed any major differences since he did that?
Not at all. Steve Bruce looks like a man who is under immense pressure. He seems to be more bothered about what he called keyboard warriors. He should stay off the internet, and he should not listen to any journalist or friend in the media who's telling them that Newcastle fans are giving him stick. It's the internet. Steve Bruce is very fortunate that we can not go to football games. I said this last season towards the end because the football was diabolical. It was actually diabolical when he had us top 10 before Christmas. But since then, Thomas, we've won 9 out of 40 games. Now, yes, that's just less than a 1-4 ratio, but that is less than 25%, and it's worse than what his managerial record is before he got the job. We said before he got the job, he will not take us forward. He's not a good appointment. And lo and behold, his record at Newcastle is worse than his career record. So, the way I look at it now is Steve Bruce coming out with, calling the players shit. He doesn't know what his best formation is. He doesn't know how to get the best out of them. And the other night at the end of the game, I looked at him and he sort of paused on the touchline before the Leeds manager come across to him. And I sort of looked at that and thought, is that his sort of final moment at Newcastle? And I prayed it was. Because he's had 18 months in the job and we have went that far backwards that we're talking about relegation. It's worrying.
It reminds me a lot of, obviously, a few years ago now with Steve McLaren, and I agree saying that it makes a big difference, fans being there. I remember because I went to a few games in that McLaren season. I remember what it was like to just before he was sacked. The fans do make a massive difference, and Bruce is kind of, obviously he's still getting criticised online, but it does make a massive difference not having 50,000 in the stadium, chanting you'll be sacked in the morning. I think that does make a difference. And I don't want to dwell on all the negatives for so long, because
of course, yeah,
there are a couple of positives with a man I'm definitely concerned about. Alan St. Maximin, of course, he had COVID. He did struggle, but he's been coming back into the side, hasn't he? So, I mean, what's kind of the update on him? Will he be starting? Will he be coming off the bench? Or
I think he'll start. I think he'll have to. There's rumours that Matt Ritchie's on his way to Bournemouth now, which I'm not surprised at, to be honest. He got a new contract a year or so ago. And the rumour has it that he got a contract because he was good mates with Steve Bruce. John Joe Shelby got one as well. It just goes to show he was by in the dressing room, allegedly. But yeah, St. Maximum, I think he will start. The jury is still out on him for me. I think he's too inconsistent. I think he looks great on the ball at times. He can go past players, but his final decision making sometimes very suspect. But he's the best person we've got. He's our best outlet. But you've got to remember, though, Thomas, Steve Bruce dropped him for the game at Crystal Palace. And then there was all of a sudden he's injured. There was rumours that there was a bit of a fallout. It was denied. And then he was over in France for a couple of months. Now, why was he in France recovering from COVID when he should be at home? There's a lot of rumours. A lot of it might be a load of bull. Some of it may be true. The truth's probably somewhere in the middle. There's a great player in there, but we can't just rely on him. And as you know, Thomas, we've got a terrible record down at Goodison Park. Terrible. Last year's 2-2 draw was the biggest robbery I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't celebrate them 2 goals because that summarised Steve Bruce in a nutshell, how fortunate we were. And I think there was only a couple of hundred Newcastle fans in the ground by the end because it was just such an awful performance. I expect the same this weekend. I think Everton will dictate the game. He's got far too much for us. You worry about our players, Thomas. I think you need to worry about your coupon and how much you're putting on Everton to win, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, though, because when we do come up against sides who are, I was about to say defensively strong. Obviously, I'm not sure if strong's been the word in the past few weeks, but do set up defensively. We have struggled to break sides down like that before, but in those games we didn't have James Rodriguez, who, I mean, he's been very good for us since he came back. So, I mean, maybe it's him, but who are you most worried about coming up against?
I think it's the same as the start of the season. Rodriguez is a class above. Calvin Lewis, without a shadow of a doubt. Calvin Lewis, without a shadow of a doubt. He's going to be, if you can keep a hold of him for a few years and build your team around him, a bit like Big Duncan Ferguson, who I loved at Newcastle, by the way. So someone like him can really, that's the difference between you kicking on into being Champions League contenders, moving on to title contenders. Keeping someone like him, he's a new Harry Kane in a sense. It'll be interesting to see if you can keep a hold of him. But, Carlson speaks for himself. You've got strength across the whole team. I mentioned at the start of the season, I like Michael Keane. He's now starting to score goals from the back again. And, you've got a lot of strength. You've got a lot of key players like Coleman, and Ancelotti. I said this, he has done a masterstroke getting him as your manager. You are going places. I think you've got 2 games in hand. If you win them both, you'll go third. Maybe the Everton supporters might think our target this season is to finish above Liverpool. That would be success. Aim higher than that, mate. You are with an outside chance of winning the league, and us going to Everton It was always a tricky fixture anyway, even when we had a good team and we were on level pegging. But the fact that you are up there, you are in the FA Cup, tasty tie against Tottenham, that'll be an interesting, point in your season as well, because if you put a full strength team out, really go for it and aim to win the FA Cup, that is exactly where Newcastle want to be, where the supporters want to be. But same as October, Thomas. I'm very, very jealous of the way Everton are going upwards and we're going down. But answer your question, long answer that, mate. But answer your question, I worry about every single player on your pitch, because if we press as high as what we did against Leeds, I think you will punish us. But if Steve Bruce says the gloves are off and he's going to do it his way, then we shouldn't really be worrying about you. We should be going there to win, because we've got to win. We've got to get 3 points somehow, somewhere.
Yeah, and in terms of strengthening the window as well, I mean, I've seen a couple of rumours. I think Josh King's been linked, as you mentioned. Matt Ritchie might be going out. Can you see anything happening? Do you need something? Is it a point where you absolutely need reinforcements? Or
I would be contradicting myself if I said we'd need reinforcements. For me, we need to change the manager. That's first and foremost. But if we're going to stick with the manager, which it looks likely, then yes, Steve Bruce, you kind of keep calling the players out. You can't keep, chopping and changing his tactics and his lineups. I mean, we made 8 changes after after one of the, it might have been the Leicester defeat. We made 8 changes. No, sorry, it was a Sheffield United defeat. And we made 8 changes. He was doing it his way. Now that's a big statement. That you've basically just wiped out the vast majority of your starting 11. And to do that so late suggests to me that he's got no belief in the players that he's sort of been, loyal to for the 18 months he's been in charge. But we need players. Every football club should always aspire to make progress and buy better players with each window. But unfortunately, with the current climate, is there going to be any deals? Probably not. You've got to laugh at Sky Sports. They used to do the transfer window for a month. You'll probably get an hour out of it on the last day. Is it even open anymore? We need players, but it may be a couple of loan signings. Picking up the scraps from teams that don't need players anymore. Prime example would be at your place, Balassi. I think he's not even in your squad anymore, is he? And he's
not registered. No,
he's not registered. So
no.
If his contract runs out this summer, I believe that's the type of person Newcastle would go for now. And I think he's a good player, surplus to requirements at Everton, of course. But that's the sort of player Newcastle would go for. Players who we could probably pick up for a few pennies, just to sort of add numbers to the squad instead of thinking, where do we need to improve? It wouldn't surprise me if Balassi came in, even though I've heard no rumours about that. It's just an example. If Newcastle picking up the best of the rest who aren't wanted anymore.
Apparently, actually, Balassi's meant to be moving to Middlesbrough in this window. So
I tell you what, that's probably a better move for him, because Steve Bruce will knock him back, and you never know, Middlesbrough might get promoted and pass us on the way down, mate. So it's good luck to the lad.
Yeah, so I mean that pretty much brings me to the end of my questions. I think we both kind of agree that the onus is on us to win this game. I mean, you really struggle for form, you struggle for goals, but again, it is 3 points that you need. So it's going to be an interesting game, definitely. I think it'll be interesting to see how we set up, because, as I mentioned, I know how we're going to set up against the likes of Leicester when we've played, Manchester United, teams like that. I know how we're going to set up against them, against teams like Newcastle. I never really know. I think that's, we can chop and change. But as I mentioned, that's pretty much the end of my questions, apart from predictions.
You'll not be surprised, Thomas, to as I said before, we've got an awful record down Goodison Park. And I can only see this going one way. I'm going to say 3-0 Everton. And the best part of the day for Newcastle supporters will be the fact that it'll be done by 2:45, and we can get on with the weekend. And the big test, mate, is next week. We've got Crystal Palace on Tuesday. That is a must win. If we don't win that and Steve Bruce is still in charge, then you've got to question what the hell is going on at the football club. But 3-0 Everton, Thomas. I
mean, that's brilliant to hear for me, but I'm not as confident. I'll go for maybe a 1-0 or a 2-1. I always expect a Bruce side for some reason always manages to just do something when you least expect it. I think that's when Bruce manages to pull out some sort of goal or result or anything really. But that is pretty much the end of the video. So thank you very much, Marc. Thank you all very much for watching. Be sure to check out Marc's social media down below. He does actually, if you want to just plug some of your social media yourself, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's any Everton fans who want to look back at the olden days, probably before you were born, Thomas, I do a Newcastle. Yeah, doing Newcastle page. I've got a lot of footage on there against Everton. No surprise that Everton used to absolutely batter Newcastle in the 80s, 4s and 3-0s. So I cover between 1980 and 1994 on Twitter. You know, I do a lot of tweets, obviously, about Newcastle. On the Supporters Trust, so we're aspire to be a better run club. There's no communication with the football club. I don't know how it is at Everton, but involved in a lot of things. I probably should walk away, to be honest, because I probably sound the most depressed person you've had on this season. But I just say it how it is. There's no confidence. The supporters' morale's just shot to pieces. And it is looking back at the olden days, which is what I do, which sort of keeps me going, mate. So, but yeah, if any Everton supporters want to give me a follow, love talking. Got a soft spot for Everton. You know, we've took a lot of your good players in the days of Kevin Sheedy and obviously Peter Beardsley back. Good times, mate. I think I'm going to go for a cry now, Thomas, talking about the good days.
So there you have it. Definitely check out Marc's social media down below, be in the description. And thank you all very much for watching. Do let us know your predictions as well down in the comments. So as I mentioned, thank you very much for watching, and join us next time on the Toffee Blues.